We gather here tonight to bring women back to their rightful place.
The Testaments, a new Hulu original series from the executive producers of The Handmaid's Tale.
It's easier to accept a story than believe that the people around you are monsters.
The battle isn't over.
There comes a time when you have to take action, when you have to choose your own destiny.
Never quite as it seems.
Watch the new Hulu original series, The Testaments, streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus for bundle subscribers. Terms apply.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Breaking news.
And tonight on the Rita Cosby Show, President Trump putting out a message to Iran. This is not the agreement we have. You better not be charging tolls on the Strait of Hormuz. Obviously, the agreement was free and unfettered transit, not Iran blocking ships coming through. And in the latest report, we've heard that it's been anywhere from like 8 to 11 ships have gone through in the last day or two. That's not a lot because typically, guys, it's usually anywhere from like 150 to 200. Some people are saying on a daily basis. So welcome to the Rita Cosby Show tonight. It is a fragile ceasefire and they still haven't put pen to paper quite yet. Also, J.D. Vance, the vice president, Jared Kushner, and also Steve Witkoff. They're going to be going to Pakistan, to Islamabad, and they're going to be meeting with the key players. It's supposed to be direct talks that are happening on Saturday morning. It's 9 hours ahead in Iran. So it will be Friday night / Saturday morning, our time. So it's going to be interesting. Also, we have the Artemis crew coming down tomorrow. So we're going to have a big show tomorrow night, too. But tonight is also a biggie because President Trump is looking and getting details of what's happening, and he is not liking it. He's already calling out Iran tonight and saying, you better not be charging for tolls. There are reports, get this, the money that it costs to go through to the Strait of Hormuz. Typically, there's no toll. It's international waterways. There's not supposed to be a toll, period. It's supposed to be free and unfettered access. And President Trump is saying you better get it back to that or else. And there's a report out there that they're charging somewhere like $2 million per ship to go through. And they also just came out with some report. And again, it's hard to tell where the truth is here with all of this because Iran is coming out and saying, no, everything's fine. But then other people are coming out and saying, no, it's clearly not fine. It's clearly not unfettered access. And they're only allowing ships that have Iranian cargo on it. So that kind of limits how many are going to go through. They are holding the world economic hostage. And right now, the stakes couldn't be higher. President Trump also saying in the last few hours, guys, he is threatening bigger, better, and stronger military responses against Iran if they don't step up. So where is all of this headed? 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. And you are listening to The Rita Cosby Show. Also tonight, we're going to talk about this case out of New York. I am in such ire over this case of the brave Sergeant Eric Duran. NYPD sergeant on the force for many years, had an unblemished record, was trying to protect his fellow officers from getting hit by a drug dealer who was speeding away on a motorbike, put a cooler and hit him on his bike to stop him. And guess what happens? Well, the guy fell off the bike and he died. It's very sad. The guy was a drug dealer who was speeding away from a scene. So it's not like it was just Mary Poppins speeding away. But a judge has now sentenced Sergeant Duran 3 to 9 years in prison, saying he's got to go to prison right away, not even saying that he can be out on appeals. This is really troubling. And the Sergeants Benevolent Union, I'm going to play some clips because we talked with him earlier tonight. He is calling it one of the darkest days for police in this country. The fact that a judge is saying we want to send this sergeant to Rikers Island, one of the most notorious prisons, that's not going to be a happy place. And the guy that died is a gang member. So you go into Rikers full of gangs. This is a tough, tough thing. And this is an outrageous decision from a judge who should have given deference to the cop, who should have said, you know what? Clearly the cop didn't mean for this to happen. He was trying to save his fellow officers. He was trying to protect the community. But I guess that's not good enough for a judge who was appointed by Bill de Blasio. We're going to talk about that and so much more. And guess what? Michael Moore, speaking of Moore, Michael Moore, remember who did the movie Big and all that stuff? He came out and he's now saying we're the bad guys, that America's the bad guys. I think he's dipping into the eggnog many, many months too early. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. And you are listening to The Rita Cosby Show. Let's go first to Senator John Fetterman, who seems to be the only voice of reason on the Democratic side. The rest of them are let's impeach Trump. Trump is bad. Trump is unhinged. How dare he try to take out a terrorist regime? That's not nice of Donald Trump to use a bad word to a group of terrorists that are slaughtering their own people. Luckily, John Fetterman, Mr. Hello, Goodbye, remember Hello, Good Night. That was his line on the debate. Matt Blaze and I love that whenever he does it. Maybe we can find that just as a tribute to him. Here it is.
Hi, good night, everybody.
Hi, good night, everybody. It was the most succinct debate line I think I've ever heard. But he has turned out to be the voice of reason. Mr. Hello, good night, everybody, has really turned out to be completely the voice of reason. And here he was on Fox News a little bit ago praising President Trump.
I would like to remind people, too, every single Democrat running for president and every single Democrat in the Senate said we can never allow them to acquire a nuclear weapon. And now if you want to talk about a war crime, you know, Iran is a 47-year-old war crime, what they continue to behave. So, you know, I, as a Democrat, I supported what President Trump did, you know, to actually call Iran accountable. And I think it's been successful.
I'm telling you, John Fetterman seems to literally be the lone voice in the Democratic Party that seems to have some common sense. And here is General David Petraeus, because here's his assessment, of course, former CIA director, one of the top generals ever in the U.S. military. He certainly knows his stuff. Former CENTCOM commander, led the surge, as we know, in Iraq. And here he is talking about how he thinks this could shake out. And he said he is concerned. There are some things that he believes he is concerned about with what may happen with Iran. Take a listen.
To a large degree, Iran is still playing the same old game that it was playing, threatening to close the Strait of Hormuz, trying to draw this out, moving the goalposts, doing nothing but complaining. Do you think that they can really be a legitimate partner in negotiations for a permanent peace deal?
Well, that's a pretty high bar to get over, a legitimate partner, but certainly they will be on the other side of the negotiating table. And the paradoxical issue here, this is not yet answered, but could Iran emerge from this very bruising endeavor in which they've been engaged, this Israeli and U.S. offensive against them, could they emerge much weakened militarily, but perhaps a bit stronger strategically, given the grip that they have on the Strait of Hormuz? This is a very significant development. And it's going to take some real diplomatic skill to get it back to what it was, which is an international waterway, not controlled by any country and open to all without tariffs and tolls. Iran clearly is able right now, because of its ability to disrupt freedom of navigation. It has some real strategic power out of this, and it's using that, of course, to influence developments in Lebanon and try to protect its proxy there, Hezbollah, to the extent that it can. So that's a challenge for the Gulf states and for the United States.
It is. And you could tell it is clearly a challenge also for President Trump at this point, because President Trump is saying that he is deeply concerned by these reports of a toll. Now, you could make the case that it takes a few days sometimes for a ceasefire to take hold. Maybe they don't want to fully open it. They're using that obviously as a bargaining chip. There's no question. They realize that's almost the only bargaining chip that Iran has right now. So you can understand why they're trying to get maximum leverage out of it. On the other hand, it is also causing maximum punishment to many of those who are trying to go through the Strait of Hormuz. Luckily, the U.S. barely relies on the Strait of Hormuz, but so many of their partners rely. So much of the world's oil supply goes through there. So it's still an enormous deal. It's 20% of the world's oil supply. That's a long amount. 20% of oil? That's massive. So President Trump says, yeah, we got to open it. This is not the agreement we have. I think his patience will run out very quickly with Iran if they don't step up. And speaking of stepping up, well, here is Zoran Mandani. He's the mayor of New York. He's about to hit his 100-day mark, guys. Buckle up. And earlier today, he was asked on New York One, the local station in New York, what do you make about the war in Iran? And he went back to his old Muslims are the victims of hate, that it's not good for Muslims. Where was he after October 7th? Remember, he was making all those vile, horrible comments in the past. But here he is talking about the impact that Iran has on Muslim New Yorkers. This is Mayor Mandani.
There continues to be an undercurrent of bigotry in our politics, I would say. Sometimes it is not even an undercurrent. And also a reality to the fact that at the center of war is a dehumanization. And this war that is happening right now with Iran, it's not one where the dehumanization is confined to any battlefield. It is one that extends into every part of our life. I recently spoke to a young Muslim woman who had been attacked by someone on a subway platform. I called her, and she told me that the first thing that man said to her before he threw her to the ground was, I wonder how many Iranians we killed today. And she said that she never thought she would face this in our city. And the rest of the conversation, she talked to me about the importance of CUNY and why we need to invest further in CUNY, and I loved that, and I wish that that was the entirety of the conversation.
Well, I wish the entirety of the conversation would also be about attacks on Israelis and Jews. Nobody should be obviously, harassed, especially if they're good, freedom-loving people. Nobody should be. There's no doubt. I don't support that in any shape or form. But the fact that he keeps going back to this Muslims are victims of hate crimes and seems to leave out about Jewish people being victims, which is the biggest group. And he talked about the dehumanization. He's hanging around with a guy named Hassan Piker. Hassan Piker is hanging out with a whole bunch of interesting characters, but Hassan Piker famously diminished the rapes by Hamas, a terrorist group, against Israelis on October 7th. Saying, yeah, there were rapes, whatever, who cares? That's dehumanization. I would say that's a little more horrific than maybe somebody getting a bad look on a subway. And what about it? Remember the story about his auntie when he was running? Oh, that she got a nasty look? What about Jewish students being spit on and harassed and threatened to the point they didn't feel safe on their own college campuses? He sort of left that out. But here's a little more from Zoran Mandani. And then he took a swipe. He didn't say Trump by name, but I guess he forgot the part that the whole tax the rich, free buses, all that stuff. Some of his philosophies that might be driving out New Yorkers in hordes. No, I guess it's Trump's fault for the war that New Yorkers aren't doing well. Listen to this one.
This is having a very, very difficult effect across our city on prices across the board. And I think that it's important to say that we have a federal government that has found tens of billions of dollars to plunge millions into despair and refuses to use that same money to uplift working class New Yorkers and Americans at large. And I hear so often from New Yorkers about this cost of living crisis and the fact that it is decades since it was first said, but that people are frustrated that Tupac's words are still prescient about the fact that we have money for war but not to feed the poor. And we're looking to advance a different kind of vision for government.
Somehow quoting Tupac doesn't really sound like, maybe he should be quoting like George Washington or someone. Somehow Tupac Shakur isn't who comes to mind when I'm thinking about major foreign policy against a terrorist group. But the fact that he sat there and said, well, it's the billions that we're spending for war. And did you hear how he said that we're putting millions in despair? That the war is putting millions of people in despair. Why don't you talk that to the freedom-loving people in Iran who are cheering for President Trump, who are begging for President Trump. Somehow their despair is the regime. What, he wants to keep the Iranian regime? That didn't make any sense that he said. We're going to take your calls when we come back. Boy, what an interesting news night here on The Rita Cosby Show.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. It's the Rita Cosby Show.
Well, you see it all around the Democratic Party. They are clearly taking aim at President Trump. They're already talking about the 25th Amendment. They're talking about impeachment. And President Trump is saying, I've only been at this war for a few weeks. It's been over 4 years with Russia against Ukraine. And President Trump, in this particular case, he is clearly on it. He's sending J.D. Vance, and he looks like a solution, hopefully, is around the corner. And if it's not, he's already saying we've got military might right there in the backyard. It is ready, aimed, and definitely there for action. Let's go to Robert on line 4. Robert in Brooklyn. Robert, how you doing?
Hi, Rita. Thanks for taking my call. Well, you just played a clip of Mamdani, and you know the fact that you have President Trump and, in theory, a Republican House and a Republican Senate. The fact that someone like Mamdani or Ilhan Omar, these people haven't been denaturalized and deported, is just an utter failure. And the fact that many of the chapters of the Muslim Brotherhood, like from Qatar and Turkey, have still not been banned, except for maybe in Florida and Texas. And CARE has not been banned except for maybe in Florida and Texas. It's very, very disappointing. Now, in terms of the situation with Iran, you know, I'm very, very disappointed. I mean, if this is going to be the end state, because I dispute President Trump. This is not regime change. They have the people. You had about 45,000 people. President Trump said last I heard him say 45,000 people were massacred in Iran for protesting, and you have almost the same leadership there. You have Khomeini Jr. replaced Khomeini Sr., although he might be, you know, practically a vegetable in a hospital. You have the same president, the same parliament speaker, and the same House of Judiciary. So I don't see this as regime change.
By the way, and Robert, hold on. Do me a favor. We have a hard break, but I will continue with you after the commercial break because you're making some great points. I also feel like there needs to be a lot bigger of a change than just sort of maybe they are more reasonable, maybe they are more moderate. I agree with sort of General Jack Keane and others that President Trump has to finish it all the way.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Rita Cosby is on. The Rita Cosby Show presents Back the Blue.
And this Back the Blue segment coming from Duxbury, Vermont, where search and rescue teams have saved the lives of 2 Canadian hikers, a 21-year-old man and a 19-year-old woman. The hikers were rescued after facing life-threatening conditions while climbing a Vermont mountain. The state police said that the man called 911 after he and the 19-year-old woman needed to be rescued after becoming extremely cold. They were close to the summit at the mountain. And so the rescue teams were deployed and they began to climb, get this, the 4,000-foot mountain at about 6 p.m., searching for the very freezing hikers. The temperatures were below zero with wind chills nearing minus 20 degrees. There were also deep snow still covering so many of the areas of that mountainside. It was a very dramatic rescue. They were able to get to them and then bring the hikers back to the bottom of the trail. Both of the hikers from Ontario have made a full recovery, and they were extremely grateful for our men and women in blue involved in this rescue. Well, we are talking about Iran. So much to talk about. Also, Sergeant Duran, Eric Duran, a travesty of justice. We're going to get to that case, too, as well. And so many other stories in the news. And also, why was Melania speaking today? It was very interesting. She suddenly goes and does this big announcement at the White House and calls for the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, saying that they should come before Congress and testify under oath. Everyone wondering what's going on there with that case. Why is that happening? Why did she come out? Also saying that she feels she has been falsely accused of being a victim of Jeffrey Epstein or really knowing Jeffrey Epstein well. She said, no, that the rumor that he introduced her to Donald Trump is absolutely false. And she said there was no real relationship whatsoever with her and Jeffrey Epstein. She'd see him at parties. But she also said that the victims deserve their day on Capitol Hill. Now, some of the victims have come forward, some of the groups, and said they think that Pam Bondi should testify. I would hope that everybody testifies. Let the truth come out. Everybody needs to know the truth. And if somebody did commit a crime against these women, certainly they should pay a dear price. But it's very powerful that Melania Trump, in a very rare moment, to see the First Lady coming out and making a statement like that. We're going to talk about that also later on in the show. Meantime, we're going to get back to Robert in Brooklyn in 1 second. But first, here is General David Petraeus, because he talked about the risks of Iran taking control of the Strait of Hormuz. Listen to this.
If you wanted to keep this, as you point out, an international waterway governed by international law, even though it falls within the territorial waters of both Iran and Oman, why would you ever give Iran even the slightest hand in administering that body of water?
Well, clearly you want to avoid that, but reality intrudes here, and they have been able, because of their ability to undermine confidence in the owners of these ships and the owners of the cargo on them. Keep in mind, this is not about risk insurance. This is about lives of the crews. When I talked to the CEOs of two of the largest energy companies in the world at a breakfast in Washington a couple of weeks ago, they explained they are not going to take any risk when it comes to this transit because of the exposure of the lives of their crews. And so that's a very high bar to get over as well, to have complete confidence. And one fears that Iran will be successful in being able to impose a $2 million tariff on transit through the strait, which is reportedly what some ships paid to get through in the past week or so. And if there's 100 or more ships a day, that is a substantial amount of hard currency that Iran could reap from that to enable them to rebuild the very heavily damaged or destroyed military infrastructure in their country.
Can you imagine $2 million just for a ship passing through? And typically there is clearly no requirement. That goes without saying. Let's go to Robert back in Brooklyn on line 4. Go ahead, Robert. You're here on the Rita Cosby Show.
Yeah, thank you, Rita. So, look, I've been supporting President Trump ferociously, like about more than 10 years. I remember waiting out Trump Tower to sign my autograph when it came out, the book Crippled America. And, that's been about 10 years. And I've been doing everything I can to support him. But right now, I'm just extremely disappointed. As you said, you quoted Bibi Netanyahu. You don't replace Hitler with Himmler. And the only change that seems to have taken place is Khomeini Sr. is dead, and his son is crippled in the hospital, is officially the leader. You have the same president, the same head of the judiciary. There's not the people, the protesters, the Iranians have not been liberated, including a small Jewish community in Iran. They're still persecuted. They have not been liberated. The Strait is still under siege. Even now, you have the United Arab Emirates. Apparently, they're taking incoming either drones or missiles in the UAE.
But Robert, it's only been a few weeks. I hear you. There's still obviously more work to be done, and I agree with you on that. My feeling is he should 100% finish the job, and Iran may force him to do that because if they're still charging and blocking the strait and charging a toll. Trump clearly already, just as I mentioned, just put out a statement in the last few hours saying they better not be charging. And this is against the agreement we have. Trump is not going to want the agreement to be so publicly violated. And he's already said that the military's there in theater. It's ready, and it's stronger, bigger, better, and they'll go back to plan A. They probably have a plan B and C and D by now with President Trump. So you also have to give it time, Robert, too. I mean, this, it's not like, this is miraculous what's happened in such a short period of time. Don't you think? I mean, it's still going to, he's not going in there thinking, he's not saying, okay, we're done, we're going to leave, and everything's fine and Iran is terrific. I mean, he's clearly not saying that. He wants to also make sure the uranium's gone. And he would love nothing better than to see the Iranian people to be able to rise up and change, take over the whole government. That would be, what an amazing moment that would be.
Well, Rita, I mean, first of all, he's holding Israel back from apparently continuing to bomb Iran. Also, apparently now there's reports that Trump is telling Israel to hold off with Lebanon. So, look, Rita, I mean, a ceasefire means a ceasefire. If the other side is not ceasefiring, if they're still messing around with the Strait, they're still attacking UAE. Rita,
no, you're right. It's not a ceasefire. But just remember, it's only been about 24 hours, Robert. I mean, that's the other thing, too. This is still a very new, or 48 max. This is still extremely new in terms of being a ceasefire. And I'm not saying, and even Trump said it's going to take a while. It's going to take a few days. I still applaud him for trying, Robert. And I hope you do too, because, the fact that he still continues to say, hey, let's try one more time to give peace a chance. They claim that they want peace a chance. But you're right. Actions speak a lot louder than words. And Trump is not going in bleary-eyed and thinking this is, I mean, he's very realistic about what's going to happen. And that's why he's got all the military assets still in the theater. That's why he's locked and loaded and ready, Robert. There is no question about it. Robert, thanks so much. You always make some interesting points. We love it. Let's go to Sal in New Jersey, line 3. Sal, your thoughts.
Good evening, Rita. Rita, concerning the NATO alliance, we should withdraw from the NATO alliance with the exception of Poland and Hungary because they're doing their share, and we should let them fight their own battles because they had rich economies, they have advanced weapon systems, they have good standing armies, and we should take all that money that we fund in NATO and bring it to America and use it to fund our education system, our healthcare system, and build our infrastructure. What do you think about that?
I can understand why he's deeply frustrated with NATO, and I do think there's going to be a realignment with the system. There's no doubt about it. I mean, how can you go back to acting like everything's fine when Germany said it's not our war? See ya. Even Italy. I mean, Italy, I was shocked about, Sal, because Giorgia Meloni is very close to President Trump, and she wasn't helpful. And also you look at Spain. Spain's a very left-leaning government, but they were a disaster. I mean, they actually, I just saw a story, you guys, right before the show that they're opening up their embassy in Tehran. I mean, are you kidding me right now? That is such like a clear thumb in the nose of President Trump saying we're going to move to reopen our Tehran embassy. I mean, right after Trump goes scorched earth on NATO. And Trump has a right to be upset. He wasn't even asking for that much. And he wasn't even, I don't even think it mattered whether or not they actually physically came through. He just wanted to see if they would say yes. And they didn't. And the fact that UK wouldn't even offer basic minesweeping ships, I mean, very small boats that are minesweeping compared to all the enormous investment America's doing. It really is. It's so disheartening, Sal. I really was shocked about that. And I think there will be some sort of realignment. And you're right. Maybe some of the money goes elsewhere, or there's a new configuration like you talked about with Hungary. I think Romania also was pretty good. Portugal, I think, also was good. Definitely Poland, as you brought up, stepped up. So maybe there's a new sort of realignment with the coalition of the brave and then the coalition of the wimps stick together. And what's amazing, Sal? Those missiles, let's not forget the missiles that Iran was sending and has the capability to send and at least did it, as of a week or two ago. Remember, they had the one that hit right near Diego Garcia. that base in the Indian Ocean. It was the British location, U.S. base there, but that was the distance of Europe. I mean, Europe should be begging President Trump for help, and they're saying not our war. I mean, what message do you think that sends?
Exactly, Rita. Because Europe is the middle Satan.
Well, you're right. They are in the bullseye, and they physically are there for the reach with some of these missiles that Iran at least had and may still have. I mean, they should be so begging Trump and saying, please come and help us. Thank you, President Trump, for fighting this noble, righteous war for us. What do you need? How can we be even second or third tier? But they don't even want to be 20th tier. And I think there will be some serious repercussions. Yeah, Trump is thinking about pulling out troops in some of these locations. I mean, one of the other ones is South Korea. I mean, Sal, you think about the history of South Korea. I just was seeing we have about 30,000, it looks like, troops there, 26.7 at a schedule of 2025 of troops in South Korea, right there along the DMZ with North Korea, right? All right. So protecting South Korea, and troops have been there a long time, as we all know from history, and South Korea couldn't offer a thing. To me, that speaks volumes. And President Trump will not forget. And you can't keep helping. And then when you need something basic, they don't come through. Anybody knows that. And President Trump definitely will not forget. You could tell even Mark Rutte, who's the head of NATO, the Secretary General, who's visiting him this week at the White House. He even seemed to be siding with Trump. He got out of the meetings and he said, Trump makes a really good point. I mean, that says everything, right, Sal?
Yes, absolutely. And Rita, it's a shame because American civilization and culture comes from Europe, and yet that very place where it all started, it's going to hell in a handbasket, and they don't even care.
Yeah, it's sad. They are losing their civilization. They are losing their soul, and they seem to be placating to some of their audiences in their own country and losing their own culture, their own values, and losing their courage also, Sal, sadly, along the way, too. Let's go to Mike in Queens, line 2. Go ahead, Mike. Your thoughts tonight.
How you doing? So right now, Trump is not withdrawn, but there's a ceasefire agreement in place.
Well, they're working on it. They're working on it.
Well, Israel is sabotaging it, obviously. The treasonous Jewish American power structure.
Wait, Mike. Hold on. Mike, wait, hold on a second. How do you feel that they're sabotaging? Because, wait a minute, Hezbollah is firing on Israel. So Israel's supposed to say, no, I'm not going to reply.
No.
I mean, you think, hang on. U.S. and Israel have both said, and U.S. has said that it wasn't part of the deal. And that, quote, Iran misunderstood. So there seems to be some gray as to whether it was.
Do you think at that level there would be a childish misunderstanding like that?
Yes, I do with the Iranians. I actually do. You trust the Iranian regime, Mike?
What kind of stupid question is that?
I'm getting stupid answers. I'm getting stupid answers hang on, Mike. You're trusting the Iranian regime. It's the Iranian regime that says it was part of the deal. So your answer is pretty stupid. So go ahead.
And Pakistan already confirmed it. What happened is Israel sabotaged it, and Trump, the administration, is too afraid of the American Jewish power structure.
Oh, my God, Mike, I knew you were going to go to the Jews are bad, and I guess the Iranians who you idolize are great. So, I mean, I don't know how to convince somebody like you who seems to think that the Iranian regime is a group of Mother Teresas. Maybe you need to start looking at history and look at what they do to their own people. Everything is Jews bad and everybody else good. That's a sad place to be, Mike. But good luck with that sad place. 1-800-848-9222 will continue. Boy, was that stupid, Mike.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. This is the Rita Cosby Show.
Well, let's go to a Mike who doesn't make stupid comments. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Mike on the Lower East Side, line 4. Go ahead.
How you doing, Rita? Yeah, I think it's time that we take back Bagram Air Force Base because the Iranian people are going to need a little Air Force. And we can put a fort there, set it up with the Iranian people and American and whoever else we could trust. But we're going to need that because we can't depend on our allies. So we got to take that back, and this is a perfect opportunity while we're waiting.
Yeah, you know what? That's a good point. And I wish we could get Bagram back. Maybe there is a way to do it because it's right there near China. There's a lot of reasons strategically where it's located, which is why the Chinese like it. And it never should have been left, obviously, by Joe Biden. And you think about the $85 billion worth of equipment left behind in Afghanistan that fell in Taliban hands because Biden left with his tail between his legs. And left America in such a dire strait. Think about how much money, all of that money, could do for, the Iranian people. Send those arms. I wish they hadn't left them in Afghanistan. I wish they can drop them covertly into Tehran and help the good people rise up against the regime. Somebody else also suggested a couple nights ago, it was an interesting thought, that if somehow the U.S. were to take control of Karg Island, and maybe some of the proceeds coming out of Karg Island, obviously the enormous amount of money, I think it's like $200 million a day that the Iranians get out of there. It's an enormous, enormous amount of oil exports. If some of that money could be given to the Iranian people, the good people, and enable them to somehow rise up and get access to it for weapons, for strategic planning, organization, a whole bunch. What do you think about that idea, Mike?
I think it's a great idea, because that money belongs to them. They've been neglected so many years. So many people were murdered for nothing. It's about time these people have their freedom back and they can live like human beings, So, yeah, that would be great, too, Give them the money. It belongs to them.
I agree. That would be beautiful. Thank you so much, Mike. Let's go to Norm in Brooklyn, line 2. Go ahead, Norm.
Yeah, hi, Rita. Okay. I don't know, getting out of NATO would be kind of that's quite a knee-jerk reaction. I don't think it's going to happen, but I think there'll be a realignment, don't you? Yeah, well, I think the Europeans, I've been very spoiled now. For 80 years, basically, they haven't defended themselves, and so, I think a little terror coming from Mr. Putin on them would potentially maybe keep them in NATO.
Yeah, and I think it's more Trump concerned about NATO than them. They'd love to stay in NATO because America's footing so much of the bill. I think it's Trump who is going to say, hey, maybe we need a coalition of those with cojones. And maybe we need a coalition of those without any cojones.
Thanks for listening to The Rita Cosby Show. You can hear The Rita Cosby Show weeknights at 10 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?